Hi,
Hi.
it's us again. We just keep appearing on this channel. Can you imagine we just hijack someone's channel and we just start. Okay, so what we want to talk about today is almost like the virtual opposite of triggers, in a sense. So we had once worked with a therapist, not a therapist, he says he's not a therapist, he's a counselor, I think, named Al Turtle, who's phenomenal for couples, and on 2 or 3 different occasions we worked with him, and it was really quite fruitful and amazing. And he has this idea of safety, right? And so...
Well, he talks about what happens in your brain and what part of your brain is the one activated when you're triggered and when your nervous system is dysregulated, and it's almost like you become a different person when you feel like you're being attacked. And so he taught us some tools to bring us back to regulation and calm and being able to connect.
Yeah, so a real basic, I guess, synopsis is in the base of our brain, there's the limbic system, and they call it the reptilian brain. It's like, I don't know if it's the oldest or one of the oldest parts of our nervous system and our brain, and it's the part that's responsible for fight or flight or freeze.
Surviving.
Yeah, surviving stressful situations. But when that part's kind of in control, it's almost like you get tunnel vision and you're not really creatively thinking or relaxed or really working so much in cooperation. It's kind of like, okay, what do I have to do to survive this situation? So to finish the idea, if you're in a conflict, when we're in a conflict, or it's stressed, or we feel attacked, or we're triggered, that part comes in, immediately blazes in and takes over the situation.
Well, you can train it. Like, the more unconscious your wounds and your triggers remain, the more the reptilian brain is helping you cope with the scenario. But if you work it and you realize what your triggers are, what your wounds are, what your needs are, then you start developing more like more ways, more like there's more time between feeling bad or getting triggered and reacting, So
Can I say something?
yeah, he gave us a list.
You should move the chair a little bit. Okay, so I think it's all right. So it's important to mention that these reactions, this system, at some point, usually when we were little, was really useful and it was taking care of us. But as it drags on into adulthood, if we don't kind of update our systems, it becomes really quite counterproductive. And so, like, to add to what you were saying, there are ways to, there's parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. So one is called fight or flight, the other one's called rest and digest, they call it as well. And so when you're in one of these systems, you're like, you're at ease, you're open to other people's ideas, you're open to the fact that you might be wrong, that your ideas might be wrong, your narrative might be wrong, and the other one, you're in the other one, so you're just kind of trying to escape. So there's tools to bring yourself back into the calm state and bring yourself out of the kind of, am I being attacked, or do I need to attack state?
Or even preventing.
Yes.
So once you've been with a person for long enough, it's useful, or sometimes you just know what the things are that trigger them, right? The tricky subjects or tones of voice or actions, words, subjects. So he asked us to do a list of things that we can do or say that make the other person feel safe. So
that make us feel safe, and then we gave the list to the other person.
Right. Yeah. So what's useful is,
because it's your own personal, what makes you feel safe.
Yeah. First, you have to figure out what makes you feel safe, And then it's useful to have the other person's list to identify when they're feeling triggered, or even like if there's a tricky scenario or whatever, then that list comes in handy, so you help the other person get out of the reptilian brain and just like cooperate, relax, and be more susceptible to dialogue as opposed to a fight.
Yeah, well, you de-escalate instead of escalating.
That's
so,
right.
like in a fight, very often it's like trigger, 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 and it gets ratcheted up if you don't have any kind of controls in place, and then gets more aggressive maybe, and more personal, and more cheap shots, and
more irrational.
Yeah, and so it's this is a really cool way to de-escalate.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about our own personal, like what it is for you that makes you feel more safe and relaxed?
Something else is that it needs to be updated, the list.
Yeah.
Because you change throughout your life, and also your triggers may change, and also the safety things might change.
Let me say one last thing. So it's really cool actually if you have this kind of skill set or set of tools. Inside a moment where it's like, okay, I'm now triggered. I'm I feel like I'm agitated. I'm feeling defensive, and all of a sudden there's this possibility in that moment. What if I want to make you feel better, or have you make me feel better, or help me feel better? And all of a sudden there's this. It's like a lifeline, I guess. But it's really cool because it's really spinning you the other way, and all of a sudden in a moment that normally or habitually might end up with really feeling bad about each other, we can kind of come to each other's support, and I think it's really cool. It's like all of a sudden having this really compassionate moment in a moment where it's like, what are you doing? What are you saying? You're pissing me off. I hate you.
So from my personal list, some of the items in there are like if I'm feeling bad. Like I'm really tired, I'm depressed, I'm angry, I'm overwhelmed. There's something you say that's like instantly I know that you're seeing me. I feel seen and cared about. And it's just when you say, a ver, which in English would translate as let's see. And it's like that moment when you are like coming out of your way, you stop doing what you're doing, and just like hold me or caress me or give me a massage. That's like a really high up in the list.
Which happened today, actually.
It happened today. I'm having a funky day.
Okay, so we'll switch off a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, for me a big one is sometimes I'll kind of take on too many things at the same time. So I'll be like cooking 4 different things and doing this and doing this and doing this, and I'll get really kind of self-absorbed in that moment sometimes, especially if there's a lot of stuff with the kids or one of them's sick, or we just have a lot of stuff on our plate and we have to rush because we have to go out or whatever. And I'll get caught in this kind of, I'm doing everything, or I'm doing more work than you, and I'm overwhelmed, and right? And in that moment, if you say something like, oh wow, it looks like you're doing a lot of stuff, maybe we can balance, or maybe, we don't have to do this, or maybe I can help you with something, or what can I do, or whatever it is, right? And it's just kind of this moment where you're seeing me struggling, without necessarily telling me that I'm struggling, right? And kind of like recognizing it. So it's like, while I'm in like my own little madness in that moment, it's like, oh, and you're like, I see you. Maybe this is too much. Can we do anything to like kind of make it easier? And then it's like, there's a little like, there's a little moment of like, okay, I'm not alone. Because I think when I get kind of overwhelmed, I get very much in this kind of isolated state where I feel like I'm the only one doing something, or I'm the only one working this hard, or trying this hard, or whatever. And so in that moment, I can kind of like come down just for a sec. This is another thing that I've noticed. This is kind of connected to safety. Is because in the past you've asked me, like when we used to get these horrible leaks in the house. They weren't so bad as much as many. So we would have like 2 or 3 places where like water was dripping because we live in the tropics and it gets heavy, the rains, and it's taken us quite a few years to kind of waterproof the ship, right? And so one time Sarah said to me, she said, when you get kind of in the stressed mode of running around trying to fix all the leaks, you don't really consider everyone else or take me into account or my opinion, and I'm valid. And I realized that even in situations where it's really stressful or it's really urgent, there's always availability of like 10 seconds or 8 seconds just to take a breath and realize there's human beings around me and they're also involved in the situation and they're also valid and they also have a point of view and what have you. And so I found that was another thing that was kind of both of us, kind of for both of our safety, for me to realize I'm with other people and also to consider you and not kind of be like, you should do this, and just kind of delegate. What?
Okay, should we do like one more or that?
Sure, one more if you want.
It's so subtle, like, there's something when, like, say, I'm talking to you about something. It could be like really superficial or stupid, as like something I want to buy, like a piece of clothing, or I'm talking to you about an essay I just wrote, or a book that I'm interested in, or something that's like I'm kind of passionate about it. And sometimes I can tell like when you're not interested, or it's overwhelming, or like it's boring. But other times, I guess maybe especially when I can tell that you're not really interested, but there's something that you do in your eyes that it's almost like you stop listening to maybe the content of what I'm saying.
And just kind of watch you, or what?
Yeah, you're just kind of like looking at me in this like appreciation way for like my enthusiasm and just like my perks and just like this person that I am. And it's so sweet. Sometimes when I'm like entrenching something and I see you look at me that way, I'm like, oh no, he's going into the like I love you mode and he doesn't give a fuck about what I'm saying. But that's just when I'm like really tripping about something probably not that important. But most of the times, even some of those times, I feel really touched about how evident it is to me the love that you have for me. Mm. And I feel very loved, which in itself is awesome.
All right, my last one. I was going to say, actually, when I feel that you desire me, like sexually. I think we've never really brought it in healthily into conflicts. We've talked about it, right? But kind of like, there's moments sometimes where, I don't know, it's similar, it's not so different from what you're talking about. It's kind of like this moment where, where you grab my ass or something, or you just tell me I'm really cute or whatever it is. And like I kind of feel, besides the fact that I feel desired, I feel accompanied, where it's like, I'm not in this story on my own, and I'm not in the hard parts of the story, because the easy parts, it's a little bit easier. But the hard part, someday it's very easy to kind of feel overwhelmed, all alone, kind of not accompanied, and just kind of like, so it's nice, and for obvious reasons, to feel desired, especially if it plays out into a little bit more something. All right, so I think that's it for safety, yeah?
Yeah, we recommend this tool. It has proven useful to us, and just the fact that you're able to know what these things are, like if you're able to know what your triggers are And then what are the things that make you feel safe? Then that's empowering for you,
Totally.
you know, because it's information. And this information you can communicate to the other person, and you can inform them too about yourself, you know, so that it's almost like little by little creating a manual on how to like relate to you.
Well, it's intimacy also, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's self-esteem, you know, knowing what wounds there are in your heart, and then how to soothe them. You know, it's just saying, well, yeah, I've gone through shit. I've survived it, and these things help me feel better, and I deserve to feel better. You know, I deserve to feel good, and I'm with you, and I want to feel good with you. So we encourage you to dive into this stuff, find out what works for you, how you feel, and
share your experiences with us.
And yeah, let us know. Maybe some of that stuff, it's useful for us too.
Totally.
All right. Ciao.
Bye.